Hi, I'm Diana Giselle Yanez, host of Highly Sensitive Money. I'm a money coach, certified financial planner, and a highly sensitive person who brings money and social justice together. If you're someone who feels deeply, can endlessly think through how one decision affects everything else, or has ever struggled with all the things that traditional financial thinking leaves out, you're in the right place. In this show, I chat with highly sensitive people on how they handle their money, and with money experts on how they cultivate social justice in their work. Questions? Please go to allthecolors.net and schedule a free 30-minute call. And I'm happy to share resources on investment management, money coaching, workshops, or anything else money and social justice related. Join us in this episode as we explore money and sensitivity while honoring that all of our well-being is interconnected. Today we'll get to hear from Lauren LaSalle, a mentor of moms of littles, to talk about the tender, often overwhelming season of early motherhood and what it means to parent with calm, confidence, and intuition. Lauren shows how her journey from discovering her sensitivity to designing a work style that includes all of her needs for herself and her family reshaped not only her sense of self, but also her work supporting other sensitives. When you listen to this conversation, you'll hear the story of a woman who continually chose courage over convention, even when it was uncomfortable. From her decision to let go of her therapy license to the vulnerable moments of trusting her maternal instincts, Lauren shows us that fulfillment comes when we stop trying to meet everyone else's expectations and start honoring our own. Welcome, Lauren, to Highly Sensitive Money. I'm really excited to have you here and to learn more about your experiences in HSP and as a coach.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I found out about you a few months ago at the beginning of 2025 when I was thinking of who would I love to have on my podcast? And there's actually not that many people who focus on highly sensitive people. And your podcast is very much about that topic. I'd love for you to share with listeners, what is the work that you do and how did you get to it?
Yeah, wow. So I guess to start, I'm due with my second child in about 2 months as we're recording this. And after having my first daughter almost 3 years ago, I had been working with HSPs as sort of just like a general HSP coach. And having a child, I mean, obviously changes your life and throws things into the mix that you have to deal with and can be really overwhelming. So I really wanted to work with highly sensitive moms. And so I'll be on maternity leave soon, but after that, when I return, that will be my focus, to work with highly sensitive moms of littles, so like babies, kids that are a couple years old, to help them deal with the life change, the overwhelm that comes with being a mom, all of the feelings that come with being a mom, the guilt, the anxiety, because I think for HSPs that can really hit us harder than the average person. And sometimes you sort of lose who you are, or you feel like you're losing who you are, or you're becoming a different person, and that feels weird. And so just reconnecting with yourself as a person and as a mom is how I really want to support HSP moms. And I feel like this is what I was meant to do. And the journey to get here, I guess, started when about 10 years ago, I discovered that I was highly sensitive. I remember somebody that I'm Facebook friends with, I don't know who, they posted an article about it. And I was like, I have to click on this and see what this is. I'm intrigued. So then I read it and I was like, somebody wrote this article about me. What the heck? What is this? And it really validated my life and my experiences and just who I am. And that was the first time I really felt like, wow, I'm not weird or wrong. There are other people that deal with these same issues and you have these same strengths that are so hard to uncover about yourself sometimes. And so that was so validating for me and such a huge, I guess, turning point in my life and how I view myself. And then from there, I went to school to become a therapist because I wanted to help people. I had really struggled with anxiety and depression as in my teenage years to my early 20s. And so I was like, I really want to be able to sort of give back and be able to help support people who are dealing with that also. So went to school for that. I was a therapist for, I don't know, 5 years. I got licensed. And then it came time to renew my license. And I was like, I think my daughter was almost 1 year old. And I went, I just like, this is so stressful dealing with people's heavy, heavy trauma and just all the emotions that come up in therapy. It was just too much to deal with. And I wanted to spend more time with my daughter and feel like I was a present mom and not feel like I'm carrying around other people's emotions too, as much as I wanted to help them. And so I just let my therapy license lapse. And I had also at that time started my coaching business for HSPs because I was like, I love working with HSPs. Like, I get them because I am one. And I feel like we need people specifically who understand where we're coming from and who won't pathologize like what we're dealing with and how we are. Because sometimes in therapy, I think if the therapist is not aware of high sensitivity, you can have diagnoses thrown on you that maybe don't really apply. It's partially due to being highly sensitive. That's a whole different story. But anyway, so I was like, I really want to be there for other HSPs because the work that I have done on myself when it comes to figuring out what I need to do for self-care, because that is different than the average person. We need a different type of self-care. Learning how to set boundaries and say no and protect my energy and my time and just my well-being. I've done so much work on myself and making myself happy and live the life that I want and a life that works for me, not a life that I feel like I should be living because that's what other people are doing. So that's sort of how that went. I worked with HSPs as a coach for a while. And then, yeah, like I said, recently I decided to work with moms and I actually decided to go for it instead of being hesitant about it, which I was for so long. So here we are. And yeah, it feels right. I've always wanted to be a mom. That felt like my calling. And then I also really love helping people, supporting them, especially HSPs. And it just all feels like it fits. So that was not short, but that's the shortest version I
No,
can give.
I mean, as HSPs, there's nothing I love more than context, right?
Yeah.
How does all this make sense?
Oh.
And it really does make sense. You went from experiencing your own sense of like not being normal, right? Not being what other people expected or what you expected even, to then going into the broad range of like mental health
Mm-hmm.
and then narrowing it down to HSPs and now narrowing it down to moms.
Right.
And I think I really applaud and congratulate that willingness to like keep reiterating, to keep reinventing yourself as you learn more. Because I think a lot of the times it's easier, HSP or not, to just stay with what we know, whether it works or not.
Right. Yeah. That's something I've definitely learned is I have to do what works for me. And if I'm feeling like something doesn't fit, I have to listen to that and go with it. And I'm so much happier when I do. Like I started off working at a mental health agency and there's so many clients. It was during COVID too that I was there. So it was like, I was working with kids and families. All of the kids were at home doing like virtual learning and we had like a million clients, too many. And it was just so overwhelming. And so for months and months, I was like, I need to leave this. This does not feel good to me. I'm drained, but I feel like I should stay. And so making that decision finally, I actually had to pay a good chunk of money to get out of my licensure contract because I guess owed them money. Like if I stayed there for a certain amount of time after I was licensed, then I would like basically pay that off or I don't know, earn my way out of that. But it was so worth it to me to leave that I was willing to pay several $1,000s to get out of there for my peace of mind. So that's been a huge part of my life too, is being like, all right, is this something that's actually working for me? Or do I just feel like I should be doing this? Because I think as HSPs, like we care about other people so much. I didn't want to leave my coworkers. They're the most amazing people ever. I didn't want to leave my clients, but that just left me in a spot where I was not happy and I was tired, exhausted.
Yeah, and it can be really easy for us to get depleted.
Yes.
Yeah. In your intro, you said a couple of things that I wanted to kind of like come back and expand. You mentioned that reading this article on Facebook randomly like kind of opened your eyes to another aspect of yourself. And you mentioned some strengths that are hard to uncover.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to some of like the strengths that HSPs have that are hard to uncover?
Yeah. We are so empathetic. And I think sometimes if we don't know how, I guess, to use that empathy in a way that feels good to us, it feels like a burden. Like I used to always want to be there for other people. And so I just would be. And it didn't matter what I needed or how I was feeling. I was like, I have to be there for them because they're going through a hard time. And so that definitely did not feel like a strength to me for a very long time until I was able to set those boundaries and be like, do I have the capacity right now to be there for this person? Are there other people that can be there for them instead of me? Like how am I feeling? Is this something that I'm going to feel good about or am I going to feel drained and like overwhelmed at the end of this? So that's one. And just thoroughly processing things. We process everything so deeply. And I think before I knew about that, I was like, an overthinker. I was really anxious. I sort of let those thought processes just spiral into a place that I didn't want to be. And so being aware that I do process things so much, I think when I'm noticing I'm becoming overwhelmed or overstimulated or just like go into a place I don't want to be emotionally because of my thoughts, I can sort of be like, all right, hold on, what do I need right now? So another thing was in school, I was always so quiet. I was pretty anxious, but I also just never felt in class like I really had anything to share because I was just sitting there listening, absorbing the information. And that was always held against me. And teachers would always say, you're so quiet. I wish you would talk or, take points off of my grade because I didn't participate. But now I know it's because I was just taking everything in and absorbing it and really focusing and paying attention. And that just doesn't count. Mm-hmm. I guess for teachers in school, like somehow that doesn't count as participating, even when you're fully present. So that always felt really yucky to me. And I felt like this is sort of just how I am. Like, I don't know. And then so learning more about that helps. And then as a therapist, I had a lot of people say, I love how you just, even coworkers, like, I love how you just listen and you're just there for people and you just hold space for them. And so that really reframed the quiet aspect for me of like, doesn't matter if I am quiet because I'm giving the person that is speaking to me the attention that they deserve and the space that they deserve. And I'm just taking it all in. And sometimes people don't need a response. They just need somebody to listen to them.
Okay. So I heard empathy, deep processing, really seeing how everything's connected and what everything implies and being fully present.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And yes, I've experienced like the yin and yang of all of those things. Although as an extroverted HSP, like I was like into participation and all of that. But it was confusing because it's like I'm so extroverted. I get energy from people and I'm also exhausted from people.
Yeah.
That was a funny experience. I want to go back to learning what the traits are of high sensitivity can help us not pathologize ourselves because it can feel so easy to just be like, there's something wrong with me. I'm anxious. And maybe I'm not anxious. Maybe I'm just thinking everything through.
Right.
Right. If you could give any like tools for people listening, for moms listening, on how they can hold back from pathologizing, how they can reframe things, what are some things you would share?
Yeah, I think something that really helped for me, I mean, just learning about the trait in general and being able to apply it to myself was so helpful. And I think just recognizing why, like if you can understand why you're doing something or reacting, responding in a certain way, that can be really helpful too. Because sometimes I think we are really hard on ourselves. For moms, for instance, if we yell at our kid and then we go, I did not want to be that person. Now I feel terrible. And then you can sort of spiral out of control, out of like into a deep hole of guilt. But if you think back about what led you to yell at your child, were they being really loud? Did you have a really busy day? Were you just at the playground talking to a bunch of other parents and you're really tired? Just seeing how you got to that spot. So, okay, I was feeling really overwhelmed. And then my kid started yelling and running around the house, and like that just pushed me over the edge. So that's why I yelled. Okay, so now I know that, I don't know, if I can, after I come back from the playground, I need to just like take a couple minutes for myself, if that's something I can do. Sometimes it's not, to just sort of decompress and breathe, and then other things won't keep building onto that. So I guess that's just one example of sort of being able to reframe and look at yourself and not I don't want to say not feel badly about it, because obviously if you yell at your child, you might feel badly about it, but to understand why that happened, and then to be able to figure out how to keep it from happening as much as possible in the future.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm hearing you just like a reminder that we need a lot of blank space sometimes in between one thing to another. Sometimes more, sometimes less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's hard to get as a parent, especially when you have a young kid that's just like on you all the time, like, mommy, come play. And just breathing. I mean, just taking a couple of breaths. I feel like our society is so fast paced that we sometimes forget to just like, even just take a couple minutes just to like sit and breathe, or just go stand outside and like look at the trees and look at the flowers and just breathe. Just take a couple minutes to just slow down and just like reset your body, ground yourself. And then the way that you respond to little things that come up can be so different.
Yeah, that's definitely a practice that I still work on. And I know I've talked with other people about how as HSPs, like maybe we don't need that much time, because we'll like deeply absorb the relaxation, but it has to be really relaxation. It can't just be like fake blank space
Right.
where I'm thinking about all the other things I have to do. It has to really be like, if I'm going to go for a walk, I have to leave my phone at home,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So I want to transition us into the other part of this podcast. So yes, I focus on high sensitivity, but I also focus on money, especially because money is such a taboo topic. It can make, like, there's so much shadow that can be shoved into money. And I think as HSPs, that can even make it scarier to go into. The question I always love to ask guests is, what was the financial background of your childhood? And how do you see it continue to affect you today and the work that you choose to do?
Yeah. So when I was really little, from what my parents have told me, money was pretty tight. My mom had been a teacher before I was born and planned to go back after I was born. But then once I was born, she was like, no, I'm not going back. So just my dad was working. So it sounds like things were pretty tight. They're really, really careful with money. I feel like those are two words that they use a lot when it comes to money. But then as I got older, my dad did really well in the company he was in. He had a really great position. So we definitely, I feel very lucky. I mean, my parents paid for my undergraduate degree and my sister's. We didn't get everything that we wanted. I mean, my parents wanted to teach us, like, you have to work, you have to earn money to get certain things. And so we did have a lot. It was comfortable. I felt very comfortable. I felt very safe financially as a child growing up, now reflecting back on that. And I do remember when I had an allowance, if there was something I wanted, a lot of the time, if I saw like a piece of clothing or something that I didn't really need, but I was like, okay, I kind of want this, then I would not buy it and I would think about it. And if it kept coming into my mind, then I'd be like, all right, I need to go get this. So I was definitely taught to be careful with money. And I know that goes back to like my grandparents, probably my great grandparents too, on my mom's side. Yeah. So I hope that answers that question.
It definitely does. It sounds very balanced
Hmm.
too, of that you weren't like only leaning one way towards don't buy it, don't buy it. Like you also like, oh no, I do want this. Coming back to it and saying yes.
Yeah. And then I found as an adult and not living with my parents, that changed because I don't know, just something from going from like their money didn't change. I know if I really needed help, they would be there for me, but something about not living with them anymore and just knowing I was like on my own. I was living with my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, but it just felt different, a little scary. And I always felt like, yeah, like we have to be careful, like things are tight. And I don't think I necessarily spent money on things that I knew would benefit me. Like specifically for business, I would, if I wanted to do some sort of certification or have like a business coach, I for a long time would be like, I can't afford to do that, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to try to figure it out for myself. And that didn't work because I didn't know what I was doing. You can only get so much information from like Instagram, the internet. And so then I decided, when was it, in the fall, to work with a money mindset coach. And that helped me so much. So that was like a big leap. It was a big financial investment, but I was like, I really feel like something needs to change. And she doesn't just do money mindset. It's sort of like overall, she does a lot of like healings, and she's really good at figuring out what your limiting beliefs are and then being able to help you like work through those. And so that feeling of like things are tight and I have to be super, super careful, I don't really have that anymore. And it's interesting because we're in the same financial situation we have been this whole time. But just by working on sort of getting rid of those beliefs that are from generations ago, it really makes me feel secure. And that makes me feel like I'm truly doing this job because I want to, not just to make money. Like before, I feel like there was some part of that attached, like, oh my gosh, if I don't get clients, then I'm not going to be making money. And like, I would really love to help my husband make some money. So like, and it's just sort of like, and now it feels more like, all right, so I know who I want to work with. I'm really going to help these people. I'm so excited to support them. And it's just sort of a bonus that they will pay me to do that. So it's been an interesting journey. Yeah.
So I hear you say that you replaced maybe a limiting belief of like, I have to get these clients with, I got to
Yes.
work with these clients.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And I'm guessing it changes my energy, like how they're HSPs too, my clients. So, how we absorb energy and notice it. So I'm sure that feeling more relaxed and being like, I am fully here to support you. Let's do this. That changes things for them as well. Because I sort of used to come into it with like anxiety, like, well, what if they decide they don't want to work with me? And now I'm like, they will, because I'm going to help them. It's going to be great. And they're going to leave this better than they came in.
Okay. So a lot more like confidence in your ability to support them, to help them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of it was connected to the money thing, which is so interesting.
Have you seen a change? Do you feel like your closing rates are better or have changed?
Yeah, I got to my last two clients. This was when I was still doing self-care. So I'm sort of finished. I was just focusing on self-care for HSPs, just wrap that up. But yeah, since I sort of switched those beliefs, I got two really amazing clients, and I was not afraid to tell them what I was charging. And in the past, I felt so uncomfortable on like the discovery calls to tell people, and I would get so nervous, and I'd be like, they're not going to want to work with me. Like they're going to think it's too much. But since working on my money mindset, I increased my prices a little bit, got two amazing clients, and I was like, of course, like it makes, of course, why wouldn't they? So yeah, my energy has totally shifted, and it feels so good.
Congratulations. Congratulations. I think that one of the weird double-edged sword gifts of being an entrepreneur is that we get to really be in touch with our money mindset, with any kind of limiting beliefs that we have in there, because it's on both sides. What do I invest into my business? What do I invest into myself?
Mm.
What do I charge people? How much time off do I give myself? I think is a big part of it. I grew up with both of my parents being entrepreneurs and very happy workaholics. Like they were like downtime, self-care. It wasn't as necessary for them as it is for me.
Mm-hmm.
So over the past 3 years, it's just been this like really like that's been the edge of how do I, maybe not so much on the money side, but like how do I make sure that I give myself all the free time that I need, like the downtime that I need, which is another side of like I'm saying no to money by like limiting my calendar availability. That's been really, really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so my dad worked a lot, like a lot. And he worked from home, which was, I mean, good and bad because he'd be like, you have to be quiet. I'm on phone. But he did travel a lot too for work. And then my mom, when my sister and I were older, she, I think maybe it was when I was in high school. Well, she was a teacher's assistant for a while in elementary school. And then she became the children's librarian at our town library. And it was so interesting to see how both each of my parents felt about their job. So my mom didn't work full time. She loved her job. She put everything into it. It was like the perfect job for her. And my dad really did not enjoy his job. He didn't really enjoy traveling that much because he had to do it so often. They're both highly sensitive too, by the way. So like my dad being in the airports and he was just like, no, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And just being on calls with people all the time. And he was clearly not very happy about what he was doing, but he kept doing it because he was making money, the money for our family. So being able to see both sides of that was really interesting to me. And I was like, all right, I'm not doing it the way my dad's doing it because it just doesn't seem like somehow he got through to retirement, but it just doesn't seem sustainable. Like, I don't want to be complaining. I don't want to be feeling miserable and exhausted. So I want to find a job like my mom where maybe I don't make what I want to, but I love it. And I never intended to have my own business. It sort of just like happened that way. Like with COVID, I got to experience working from home and I was like, this is the best thing ever. And just, yeah, everything shifted. There was so much more happening online. And so I was like, I need to start my own business so I can set my hours, I can set my rates, which was like super scary at the time to set my rates and just be in full control of my life. And yeah, wow, that has made such a difference. I mean, I feel like I've been a different person since then.
I had a career coach come in earlier in this year in the podcast, and she talked about a lot of HSPs actually going on to entrepreneurship because it gives us so much more control over the amount of stimulus that comes in, and also over the amount of like, what kind of coworkers do we have, if any? What kind of clients do we work with, if any? It's like a lot of control that can be really, really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And as a therapist, for a while before I stopped doing therapy, I was working remotely for a company, and luckily I could pretty much set my own schedule, figure out how many clients I wanted. And I realized I had to have at least an hour in between clients, which is something I didn't get to do at the agency. It was like back to back to back to back to back. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. And so, yeah, that really helped me figure out like, all right, I need chunks of time in my day where I'm just not working. Like I just can't be interacting with people that often. So yeah, that was a game changer. And I actually had a client who's also a therapist, and that's something she found too. She was like, I can't do back to back. It's too much. So yeah, it's interesting finding out what you need that works, because sometimes you just feel like this is just how you do it, right? Like you just have 5 clients in a row. No, don't do it. Too much.
And there's so much more flexibility too on how we make money as entrepreneurs, because you could sell courses that are like don't related specifically to how much time you have. You could host groups. Like there are other ways of both really enjoying your work and also like having your mom's side of the equation where she really loved what she did, and also having your dad's side where he had a lot of financial stability.
Right.
Both are possible.
Yes. Yeah. And I always thought it was like one or the other. And then I started my business and I was like, I'm gonna do whatever I want. It's gonna be great. And my clients will get it too. Like if I have weird hours or I don't know, if I have to cancel because my kid is like having a meltdown, I'm like, well, I'm going to be working with mom, so they're going to get it. I mean, bring your baby to our session, do what you need to do. Flexibility is like one of my number one things now, because I think it's so important for us to just be able to do what we need to and have people that in our lives that understand that.
I definitely agree. And I know it took a little bit of back and forth for us to actually get to the recording today on both of our sides, right? Both of us were like, I need a little more time.
Yeah.
And I feel like I had to learn to give myself permission to not always be pushing. It's just like from my own experience of being highly sensitive, it was a few years ago, maybe I think it was during COVID, that I learned about the term and I rejected it. I thought sensitivity sounded weak because I don't know, maybe it's because my parents are immigrants. I don't know what it was, but I was just like push, 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 push. And having to tell myself, no, you can rest. It just felt really threatening. So it's taken a while for me to be like, no, I do better when I rest. And actually I just want to rest. Like I don't have to justify it in any way. I can just be with it. So yes, the flexibility and like learning to listen to myself. I feel like those are again the leading edges of like what I'm learning, what I'm integrating into my business, because I love my work and I'm able for the most part to show up for client meetings like fully available for them. But then the rest of my day, if I haven't taken care of myself by like providing those gaps in between, I'm wiped out and I'm cranky and I'm overwhelmed with like the choice of what to do for dinner, you know? Like everything becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
I do want to bring social justice in. So let's focus it on mom. So for right now, the way that the economy is set up, a lot of like what we consider the core economy is actually like women's work, like a lot of caretaking. Like that's why teachers tend to be underpaid and and like children's librarians tend to be underpaid, and why we don't think about what a stay-at-home parent or somebody who dedicates a lot of time to childcare is contributing to the economy. And one of the jokes is that the what's considered like the father of modern day economics, Adam Smith, if his mom hadn't been doing like his laundry and grocery shopping, maybe he would have noticed the care economy, but because he had someone doing it for him. So when I think of social justice very, very broadly, it's kind of like, how can all of us have our needs taken care of? And I know that you focus on moms, right? And especially in the US compared to other first world countries, there's less support for moms than there could be. So I'd love to hear from your point of view, given that like being a mom, being a parent is such a big part of how we create society. I wonder, like, ideally, what kind of supports you'd like to see available for moms, especially HSP moms.
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like in the time we live in, it's so easy to be just disconnected from other people and just to sort of feel isolated. And that's something I've especially noticed among HSPs just in general, is the feeling of isolation. And so I think then becoming a mom, especially if you are a stay-at-home mom or you're with your child the majority of the time, sometimes that can feel really isolating too. So I feel like we need to sort of go back to that community, like it takes a village to raise a child sort of place that we used to be in. I feel like, yeah, things now are so much more individualized. Like there's not so much focus on the family, like with the extended family, and they all used to live together, or maybe it depends, you know, where in the world you are. But there definitely needs to be more connection for moms, especially highly sensitive moms, because like I was saying before, things can just seem extra overwhelming or extra hard. and not having anybody to talk to about that, even if it's a non-HSP mom, just another mom that has a child around the same age, it can make such a difference in how you feel. It can sort of normalize what you're dealing with. It can help you understand, like, developmentally, yeah, your kid is doing the thing they're supposed to be doing. It might be really annoying, but developmentally, that's normal. So just going back to that connection and having a support system, feeling comfortable asking people that you trust, family, close friends, whoever it is in your life, to help you out. Because I feel like we don't want to burden other people. So we sort of just suck it up sometimes and try to do it all on our own. And that just leads to just burnout and fatigue. And so if you have people in your life that you can turn to for support, I think it's really important to be able to ask them for that support, whatever it is, whether it's spending some time with your child so you can have time to yourself, or go get something done, or if you need them to help you, like, come clean the bathroom or something, just even things that you might not even think of that other people would help with. Like, just, I need some help right now. Like, please come help me. Yeah. So I feel like that's the main thing is the support and the connection. And I'm sure there will be more as my kids get older that I'll figure out, be like, where are these people that are supposed to be helping me with this? I feel like I need someone. But right now I feel like, yeah, those are really the two main things that we could use.
Yeah. So more support, and we're just kind of like an open offer of like listening, and also like literally doing things, right? Like, use the example of cleaning the bathroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's okay to ask for help. And I feel like a lot of us don't want to, or you feel like, I don't want to inconvenience this person. But the truth is, I think a lot of people are willing to help. You just have to ask. And if they say no, they say no. But they could say yes.
Right. And I've heard through different avenues, through research that I've read, that one of the main ways of like actually measuring someone's happiness, or that one of the main things that leads to happiness, is having a really strong relational community, right? Having really strong relationships. And it's not so much about the quantity as much as it is about the quality. So, and sometimes when we do a favor for someone, I remember during the pandemic, one of my close friends is a single mom, and we were in a pod together. So we were kind of like our little pandemic pod. And I would go to her house once or twice a week to just hang out with her kids while she took a walk, or went to the grocery store, or like took a nap, and it was beneficial for me because I was like not seeing anyone in person. And her kids were fun. And then she also needed the support, and it really like strengthened our bond. So I hear that. And I've also heard other people say that like a 2-parent household is not enough. Like, it needs to be a community household.
Mm-hmm. That's so awesome that you did that. Yeah. And luckily my parents are about 25 minutes away. So we go to their house like for the whole day on Wednesday to hang out. And then I can have some like sneak off and have some time to myself if I need to. My daughter used to stay there from, I don't know, like 2:00 until like 7:30. And I would come home and like work or rest or whatever. And she's, I guess, going through something where she just needs me to be with her all the time. Maybe it's because she knows there's a baby coming. I have no idea. But that doesn't happen anymore. But yeah. And then my mom comes over a couple afternoons a week to be with my daughter so I can do things. And it really helps so much. And it took me a while to get to that point where I felt okay being away from my daughter, because I wanted to be with her all the time. And I did have some people. There was this random business coach. I think that's what she was, on Instagram, messaged me, and she was, because they, you get a lot of messages from business coaches, business. And so she was saying something about, what are your goals? And I said, well, I just had my daughter like 3 months ago. So I'm like, not really, I don't really have any goals. I'm just sort of going along, doing what I'm doing right now. And that's fine with me. And I just really want to be with her. And she was telling me, well, you have to take care of yourself and you have to whatever. And I just felt like, look, lady, I just had my first kid like 3 months ago. I want to be with her. I don't think that's wrong. I think that's like natural. I've always wanted to be a mom. Of course, I'm going to want to be with her all the time. And so that really just rubbed me the wrong way. And I was so mad. I read that message and I was so mad. I was like, who is this lady? Does she think she is? But I guess that also goes back to the support too and the connections of just, yeah, normalizing like if you have a kid, it's okay to want to be with them all the time. It's okay if you need to go back to work to have that time where you're not around your kid. Like all of the feelings are okay. It's okay if you just had your first child and you feel like, what have I done? I can't go back from this. That's normal too. It's okay if you have your first kid and everything's going great and you're like, this is the best thing ever. It's all okay and it's all normal. And I feel like, I don't know, there's just so much like guilt thrown at you sometimes, no matter how you're feeling. It's like, well, you shouldn't feel that way because of this. You shouldn't feel that way because of that. You should do this with your kid. You should do this, do this. And just being able to connect with real people and talk to them instead of like reading about stuff online is really helpful. And I think it helps you just connecting with yourself too. And like, what do I need to do for my family? What feels right for me and my child, and not listening to all the stuff that's being thrown at you. So I feel like I sort of went on a tangent there, but it's something I talk about a lot with people because it just can get really confusing, I think. Like, do I sleep train? Do I not sleep train? Do they sleep in bed with me? Am I supposed to breastfeed them for how long? Am I supposed to breastfeed them? Is it okay if I don't breastfeed them? And it's like, it's all fine. You just have to do what works.
One of the things I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's this question of like, how do I do this right?
Yes. 100. That's such a good way to sum that up. Yes. Yeah. How do I do this right? And I don't think there is a right. I mean, there are guidelines from the experts, but there are also, I think, like bed sharing, there are so many people that are for that now and that are doing that with their kids, and not just sleep training. My daughter used to sleep with us. She's transitioning into her own bed now because she was ready, which is great. And I wasn't going to push it. And I wanted her to know that I was there for her and that she could feel safe going to sleep. And that's what worked for us. And before we had her, we were like, 0% chance she's coming in our bed. Not happening. But then that's what worked. And I had to explain to my parents because they sleep trained me because that's what you did. Like, cry it out. I said, like, that's fine that you did. That's what you were told to do. Like, that's what you were supposed to do then. For me, that feels wrong. And it didn't feel like it worked for my specific child. So she's sleeping in bed with us. And they're like, don't really get it, but I respect that. Yeah. So how do I do this right? I feel like is a thing that comes up a lot because there are so many things thrown at you. Yeah. And you're like, which one is right?
Do you think that's the experience for all parents, or is it more prevalent for HSPs?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I would guess that we would probably tend to overthink things more and be like, well, this person, like, I trust them. Should I listen to them? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't want to not do what they're advising me, especially if it's like a parent or something. I don't want them to feel like I'm doing something wrong. So I'll just go along with it. I don't know. I've never been like that. I've always been like, I don't care what you're telling me. I'm doing it my way. But definitely, I feel like the overthinking could play a role in that. And like, I just don't know what to do. So something that I've been working on within the past few years is really being able to connect to my intuition and listen to it, because I didn't for so much of my life. And a part of that was leaving the job at the mental health agency, just being like, this has been nagging at you. Like, you are telling yourself, like, you just need to get out of here. Just listen, please. And then ever since then, I've just been like, okay, what do I need? Doesn't matter what other people are saying. Just like, what works for me? And then bringing that into parenting has been really helpful. And just, I think you sort of automatically connect with the parents that are sort of on the same page as you. Like, you just sort of feel each other out. You like figure out, all right, you're doing that. All right. Okay. And then your network can just sort of grow from there, and the support can grow. And I used to be so afraid of what people thought of me and of my choices because they weren't always what everybody else was doing. And now I'm like, if they don't like it, they don't like it. Bye. I'll find the people and connect with the people that understand and that are coming from the same place, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I think a hidden, like, that's one of the places of being an HSP where like I'm so empathic. I remember I was dating someone and they're like, "Are you a psychic?" I'm like, "No, I'm just kind of putting together the things that you're telling me, the way that your face is moving, like I don't know how I know this thing that you didn't tell me." But that can definitely make it feel like, well, I know what'll make them happy. So let me do that.
Yes.
Right. And it can feel so easy to forget that I do get to be happy, not just this random person on date one, like, no.
Yes. Yeah, that was a big theme in my life too, was, how can I make this person happy? How can I make them feel better? And it's like, hello, you are miserable doing this. Like, what about yourself?
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to sort of come to terms with, I think, when you realize, like, I've been there for everybody except for myself. And that needs to change.
Yeah. And I think it's also part of being like gendered female and like what culture says about us, but that's a huge, big topic. As we're wrapping up, is there anything that you would like to share with the audience, to share with listeners?
I feel like there's so much. I guess the big thing would be just keep learning about yourself, and like non-judgmentally learning about yourself, observing yourself, and just noticing things, like how you respond to things, the way you feel about things, the things that you need. Just connect with yourself. And it's okay to say no to people, and it's okay to not be there for everybody, and learn how to use your skills in a way, like empathy, in a way that also works for you, I think has been a big thing with a lot of my clients and a lot of the guests I've had on my podcast. Just learn to be there for yourself, and it will make the biggest difference.
I love that. I love that. I'm remembering I read one of Elaine Aron's books on highly sensitive people. And in one portion, she talked about having like a childhood that was not stable kind of impacted HSPs more. We were more likely to have like, I don't know, avoidant attachment or whatever the negative attachment styles are. But HSPs are also more likely to be able to transition into positive, secure attachment because of our ability to self-reflect. And when things aren't going well, we notice like denial is like harder for us because we're so self-aware. So I think that's a hidden talent that can be painful. But however, like I've learned that once I embrace it, just like what you're saying and what you said your guests say, is like listening to your intuition will just help you move faster towards the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your work. Thank you for being a guest today. I look forward to sharing this with any moms who are out there listening and want some support, want some more community as they're embarking on this journey. I will link your website, link your podcast. And once again, thanks for being a guest.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
It was such a pleasure having Lauren LaSalle join us today and share her wisdom as both a mother and a guide. This episode is rich with stories of growth, leaving draining work, reframing guilt, and learning to see sensitivity not as a weakness, but as a guide toward deeper empathy and connection. The story she shared about moving from guilt and overwhelmed into calm, and about shifting from I have to I get to, highlight how powerful reframing can be, both in parenting and with money. Thank you for joining me on Highly Sensitive Money. I'm Diana Giselle Yanez, and I hope this episode helped you see how money and sensitivity can work together while honoring our interconnected well-being. We have the power to create a system where everyone's needs are met because nature is abundant. If you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to leave a review and share this episode with someone who could benefit. Your support helps this message reach more people navigating their own financial journeys. A thank you goes to Mike Schul for the music and Juan Antonio Nunez for producing. For more resources on bringing money and social justice together, sign up for my monthly newsletter over at allthecolors.net. I also invite you to schedule a free 30-minute call where we can talk about money coaching, investment management, and all things money and social justice. Until next time, remember that your sensitivity and deep thinking is your superpower.